All right, well, today I'd like to welcome the inheritor to the Luzvaminda, Kali, and Arnis system, Master Ricky Lazo. How are you doing today, Master Lazo?
Doing good. Been having a lot of rain here in Florida, but doing all right. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. I'd like to begin by initially learning a bit about your system, how your father developed it, and initially your father's history and what drew him into the martial arts, please.
Okay, well, my dad's system is called Luzvaminda, Arnis Kali. It's a composition of styles from the three main islands of the Philippines, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. He had studied under 5 different masters in the Philippines, so it's a compilation of what he had learned from those masters, plus his own research and development into the arts.
And which 5 masters did Grandmaster Lazo first study under?
Well, his first teacher he studied under when he was 13. It was his father, Paulino Lazo, and Paulino had trained with 2 masters. One was Jose Oja, and then there was another one, Gabasho Diaz. Well, Gabasho Diaz was primarily his teacher, and Oja was more like a they just exchange technique. But Paulino Lazo's style was the Cabarawan style, which is a long range system. Blocking. You basically block. You go with the force instead of meeting the force. So he had learned the Cabarawan style from his father, and also Tiniliu, which is kind of an empty hand system that they practice also.
I see. And then who was his next instructor?
He had studied under also under Felicissimo Dizon. When he was a kid, Dizon would travel around, and he was actually a healer, and he had tried to cure my father's aunts, but it was cataract, so he was unable to cure it. But that was the first time he had met Felicissimo Dizon, and later on, he had heard when he was grown up, he had heard there was a good escrimador in Novaliches. So he went there, and it was kind of like in a remote area, but they went, and he was surprised to see that it was Dizon there, but he was not much older at the time.
I see. And so Felicissimo Dizon had taught him the De Cuerda system. Is that right?
Yeah, De Cuerda, and mostly they focused on Sombrada. Dizon focused on Sombrada with my dad. He since my dad already had some background in Arnis, he was able to jump to more advanced techniques with him.
And so beyond that, after he had finished with Felicissimo Dizon, where did he move to next for further instruction?
He also trained with Mateo Ilioso, which he had learned the Tabaca Balarao style, or the sword and daggers system. And that's with him. And he also studied with Mr. Luis Cruz, who belonged to the group. It's called Tabacni Bonifacio, or the Sword of Bonifacio. And Mr. Cruz belonged to the group of Placido Yambao. And a lot of people know Placido Yambao, who was a Philippine champion, and had authored the first book ever written on Arnis. Mga Karunungan sa Larong Arnis, which was published in 1957, and Mr. Cruz is also featured in that book.
I see. And this after his time in the Philippines, what actually brought your father to the United States, and what brought him to travel east or west? I'm sorry.
Just he wanted to have a better life for himself and his kids, so he wanted to travel, and he decided to stay in Tampa, and he was there, that's where he decided to stay and raise his family and work and all
And so that is where the family continues to live today, is in Tampa, Florida. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean just the immediate family, but all our relatives on his side, they're all in the Philippines. Same thing with my mother's side. They're both in the Philippines.
Now, within your structure of your particular system, how many levels of development are there? And within those levels, how many angles of attack are covered for each particular level?
As far as levels, do you mean ranking?
Correct, yes.
Okay, well, my dad, he based the ranking system based on the student's skill level, than opposed to like their social standing.
Mm-hmm.
And because some people, do like the Lacan system, or Datu or things like that, use those type of terminologies. But what he says is in the Philippines, a master will determine really your skills on not your social status, but how the level of skill the student has.
Mm-hmm.
So he based it more on skill level than rank. Like he uses, instead of Lacan, he uses Dalubhasa. Dalubhasa is like an expert. For the black level, it's Dalubhasa Isa, number 1 to number 10, 10 being the highest.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also 1 to 10 student levels, and then 1 to 10 in the black belt levels. And the 12 angles is what we start with for the students.
So you initiate your training by the student learning the initial 12 angles, and then the counters through those 12 angles?
Well, we have there's the star pattern, which is five basic angles that he starts with. And then later on they learn the 12 angles, because it's kind of like if you can defend against the star pattern, the 5 angles, you can defend against the 12 angles. So it's kind of like a shortcut method that they use instead of just learning how to. But they learn how to defend against the 12 angles too. But like just to save time, they learn to defend against the star pattern, which are 5 angles.
And then would that be at your first level of development that you learn the initial five angles, or the star pattern that you were describing?
Yeah. Star pattern is always beginners are initiated on that first, block, defense, and counter, and then they learn to defend and counter against the 12 angles.
Mm-hmm. And when they learn to defend, are they more sweeping counters, or are they actual blocking counters?
Well, my dad always favored sliding than compared to any kind of force-to-force block.
Mm-hmm.
Since he's a smaller person,
sure.
He always focused more on technique and principle than compared to brute force. So he always prefers sliding the stick, because when you slide the stick, it absorbs the impact of the strike, and also if you meet force to force, the stick has a tendency to bounce, which is, you may miss the checking hit might miss, or the stick might bounce away where you can't grab it. So he always emphasized sliding the stick.
So your particular method, or your father's particular method, was primarily a single stick system?
It was single stick, and also sword and dagger, and then Sinawali also.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. At what point do you place the double stick or the Sinawali? At what level do you put that into play?
Okay, well there's 2 things. There's Sinawali drills,
mm-hmm.
which are found in all Filipino martial arts.
Sure.
And then there's Sinawali flowing, which was developed by Grandmaster Lazo. The Sinawali drills, are taught first because that lays the foundation for moving to the Sinawali flowing. It develops your striking, and then proper form and all that. And one thing that we do also with our Sinawali is that we do a line Sinawali. So most Sinawali is done cross. But it's just like if you're on your basic on guard, your on guard position.
Right.
With your stick, one up by your shoulder, one under your armpit, right?
Correct. Yes.
And then if you do a line Sinawali, he will be on the same side, on the on guard position instead of the opposite side.
Uh-huh.
If you know what I'm saying. So we do Sinawali align also.
I see. So rather than, if you will, taking the heaven six and actually meeting, you're having the other person follow the strikes.
Well, he's meeting it, but you see, we have this thing called body relationship in our system,
Mm-hmm.
which is the basic denominator of how the hands will meet. Either have a line or cross. It's hard to explain it over the phone,
Of course.
without demonstrating it.
Mm-hmm.
But also in the Wali, the relationship is cross. The way they meet, like if we did our first number one strike of the heaven six,
Yes.
our arms would be crossed.
Mm-hmm.
If they were, let's say, our left hand and our right hand were meeting together, that would be a line. But let's say your right hand and my right hand, if we did our first strike, that would be a cross relationship. So since we have that principle of align and cross, we also do the Sonawali all align, not just all cross. So that way there's more balance. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay.
Sure. So, in relationship, then, do you pass that on as a into an empty hand scenario? So, in other words, does your stick drills, or do your stick counters therefore translate then into empty hand as well?
Yes. I mean, it no matter empty hand, no matter stick,
Mm-hmm.
there's only certain ways the hands can meet. Either a line, cross a line, or a line, cross. Or there's also a line, and cross. So we don't really focus on names. We just we just follow that basic relationship, and it kind of simplifies things a little bit.
Sure.
Instead of having to remember so many different techniques. But he based his style out on principle and concept, and that's how he also developed the Sonawali flowing based on that principle.
And so, with that development, then at the first or initial stages of development within the system, is it more prevalent? Let me back up. When a student begins within that first level and getting familiar with your particular system, are they introduced to? They're introduced, obviously, to double stick for the Sonawali drills, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, are they also introduced to the single stick as well as Espada y Daga, or is that separate and at a separate progression, at a different progression?
Primarily, it's a single stick. They're introduced, because that's the most basic
Mm-hmm.
and easiest. So they do single stick, and they do some basic Sonawali drills. But when they get to more, let's say, the student levels, like level 4, level 5, they get into the sword and dagger techniques also.
Now, when you involve the single stick, what type of footwork do you incorporate in your system, along with the striking and the defenses and counters?
For the single stick?
Correct. Yes.
Basically triangle footwork.
Male and female triangle footwork.
Yeah, basic triangle. And then just basically shuffling forward and back, basic shuffle,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you use within your system? Do you also use the replacement footwork?
The replacement footwork?
Where you would replace your let's say you had a right lead, and your left foot would step up to meet the right foot, and then the right foot would shuffle back, so that it would give an indication that you may actually be moving forward to your opponent, say within Sumbrata, but in all actuality you're maintaining your same distance, and it somewhat throws off timing.
Yeah, there's some similar to that, but most of the type of footwork we use is when we use the double stick versus the Bangkao or Sonawali.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where basically you have to use footwork to cheat distance, because you have two shorter weapons against a long pole. So you use your footwork in order to penetrate inside to get closer to the opponent with the bong tao. So we do like a lot of dodging, footwork with the Sinawali versus bong tao, and also with the empty hands too. What's really emphasized in our system.
At what point do you actually flow from the single stick into empty hand translations of the single stick counters?
What they learn first is how to release, empty hand releases, and then we do some basic empty hand flow drills, elbow drills. It's probably a little bit more like intermediate level.
Mm-hmm.
They don't start right away on the empty hands. It's always the weapon first.
And within that progression, how long does it take for an individual to progress through your particular system into an instructor level status?
I would say at least 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
To be an instructor.
Now, within your system, do you also employ sparring with the spotty daga, Sinawali, and with the single stick?
Flowing or freestyle?
Yes.
Yeah, we have freestyle for single stick. We have freestyle for spotty daga, or we call it tabak balaral. We also have freestyle with bong tao, staff versus staff. And then we have freestyle with Sinawali, and then we have a freestyle with Sinawali versus double stick. And then we have flowing with the knife and empty hand, and then we have flowing knife to knife, and at 2 positions. We have the tusok, which is the knife that's held point up, and then we have the bayo, which is when the knife is held in reverse grip, and also the empty hand flowing. So there's basically in each particular style there's flowing involved.
To what degree, or I should say, to what degree were you taught at a young age your father's system? When did you begin to learn?
Well, he started me really probably when I was maybe about 5 or 6, but he was very strict, and at first I really had no interest,
Mm-hmm.
But when I was about 11 or 10, I felt no one was really learning it, and I felt obligated that I had to learn. So I approached my dad and I asked him, I said, "Dad, will you teach me your system?" And he said yes. And later on, he said, he said, "Oh, thank God, thank you God, because he's like, oh, I thought I lost him, He later on he said, I shouldn't have been so strict, but I know, he just was pushing me hard because I'm his son, and now I'll be the one to pass it down to the family." So looking back at it, at the time, I didn't like it, but I now that I look at it, I'm glad it was like that. Basically.
When you were young, do you recall other instructors, other friends of your father visiting and working out?
Yeah, as far as back as I remember, people would be coming to our house and in the backyard and training with him, and I would see the sticks swirling and them flowing, and it was just something that was really fascinating for me, just to watch as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted him to learn, but just the fact that he was, that it was really strict, that it kind of turned me off at first. But I've always had interest in learning, even as far back as I can remember. And I was always interested about Philippine history and culture. And he would always talk to us a lot about the Philippines. He would tell me stories about my lolo, when he had fought, my grandfather, when he had fought different like death match or being challenged.
Sure.
He would tell me stories about about that. My lolo's encounters with other arnisadors, or his other fights with his relatives, and those are things that really developed my interest, I would say, in learning Arnis.
And did you, throughout your young years, did you have the opportunity to meet a great deal of some of the folks that your father had spoken about and had actually worked out with?
As far as his instructors, I never met any of his. I met my grandfather once when we went to the Philippines, and he actually did demonstrate some techniques on me, you know. And he like chopped me on the neck really hard, you know. And it was a very nice experience. I was really excited to meet him. That was in 2000, and I was 20 at the time.
Uh-huh.
But I had heard so many stories about him, and just to meet him in person was just a nice experience for me, you know.
When you, of course, and when you went to the Philippines, did you have the opportunity to meet others that were associated with your grandfather?
Other
instructors, other manong that may have been teaching other systems.
Well, I got to meet my dad's compadre, Ernesto Process.
Uh-huh.
I met him, and you know, we went to the soap ship council, and we met. He was there, and you know, I've seen him more, and I only met Professor Remy once when I was I think like 14. But Grandmaster Process I've met several times, and met his family, and you know, and some of his students and everything.
And how, in comparison, system for system, how do you feel the teaching methodology is different or perhaps the same from, say, Kumbatan or modern Arnis, or for that matter, say, Sarada Eskrima?
Well, it compared to all of those, or
yes, no. In general, do you feel that they all flow similarly, or do you think that that each of them have some differences that are beneficial, and do you think that that's something that in your father's years you may have incorporated, is those particular different methodologies from obviously from all 5 of his instructors as well as his own experience?
Yeah, I think it's just based on the individual and their creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, each instructor developed it differently. You know, let's say as in combatant, there maybe I do see some similarities, but each art branched out differently due to the instructor's individual creativity. So. You know, it's not totally the same.
Sure. And did your father did he encourage further development within his system? In other words, did he encourage you to develop the system further, or did he anticipate that it was going to primarily stay the same?
Well, he one thing he said to me is, all I want from you is to use your creativity, basically, and basically continue to research. That's what him and I would do. We would he would have like a brainstorm, and he would think of, you know, something, and some kind of research, and we would work on it and then develop it. But he always encouraged me to research, and you know, develop the art, you know, to my potential.
So he was a person who encouraged working within other systems and with other instructors, and or did he want his system to be as pure, if you will, as when he left it?
No, he's not against studying other systems, because even he himself, he had studied several different systems, you know. So you know, but you know, he always encouraged, you know, to research and just continue to develop the art, but basically the way he told me.
Do you at some point plan on carrying on his particular legacy and expanding the system?
Yeah, yes, I intend to. You know, since his passing, I had to it was kind of hard, so I just laid low for a while. I stopped teaching, but I'm starting to get back into it again, and it's really my goal is to promote his art and to try to produce more instructors and conduct more seminars in order so his art will spread and other people can learn it as well.
And how do you plan to go about that? I mean, are you planning to expand your exposure nationwide or worldwide or both?
Both. Yeah. I've already done seminars around with my dad, so some of those contacts, are asking me if I could, do seminars. So, like, we have a group in the Midwest. So they asked me to come out in September to do a seminar also. So, I plan to travel around, do seminars, to spread his art and produce more instructors, so they could teach more people. Really what my intention is.
Now, are you presently developing material for say, curriculum? In other words, like books and things of that nature, or did your father have literature that he had wrote in regards to his system, or manuals or so forth?
He developed a curriculum for the student levels and advanced. So I'm just implying that right now with the classes that I'm teaching.
So that's something you plan to promote? Is that something you plan to publish, or is that something that you're going to leave for those that you teach individually? Just the ones that want to be instructors. They have to follow the curriculum, in order to test for rank, and that way at least we know that the student is meeting the standards of the system, So, students that want to advance to the levels and gain more knowledge, they have to be well versed on the curriculum in order to progress further into the art. So, sure. How did your father feel in regards to competition? In other words, there are a lot of recently there have become a lot of stick fighting tournaments, if you will, with the padded stick or things of that nature. Like WACAF has been around for quite a while. There's the United States Filipino Martial Arts Federation, who also does tournaments and so forth. Bahala na out in California. Was he encouraging towards competition in that regard, or did he feel that? Do you think that may take away from the actual art, the systems, and what they were as a whole?
As far as I can remember, he really didn't. He wasn't really into the competition sport, the tournament. But if he had a student that wanted to enter, he would never
discourage
against it. Yeah, discourage. Yeah, but he wasn't really much into the tournament, pad tournaments, and all that. He really didn't favor or really didn't favor those.
Right.
He wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that something that perhaps you may take up in the future, or are you going to stay away from that as well?
I really don't know right now. Maybe, but at this point, probably not.
And as far as the students are concerned, is that something that perhaps you may develop within your students, if they or something that you may encourage within your students?
Yeah, if they want to enter like a tournament, that's fine. I would encourage it.
In regards to your system and back to its development or developmental stages, what do you think was the primary influence upon your father and his system? What do you think? Which particular instructor do you feel had the most impact on his development?
I asked him that before, and he said he answered was Nicolas Ignacio. I don't know if I mentioned him yet, but Nicolas Ignacio was like a World War II veteran, and traveled around. He's originally from Talisay, Cebu, but I believe he was staged. He had moved to Pangasinan.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad said he was his most influential because he had taught him not just the technical side, but also the spiritual side of Arnis also. So he had said that Nicolas Ignacio was his most influential instructor.
So he had also taught the healing part of the Filipino martial arts as well as well as the fighting within the system.
He had done. He was more like into like orasyon, orasyon and anting-anting. I don't think he was really a healer, as like how Dizon was known for.
Dizon known more as a healer.
Well, Dizon was also a healer, also, yeah. And he also, my dad said that he had possessed an anting-anting, that he would have it. Usually, he would have it in his mouth. And he would always be like, you can hear him like clicking the stone in his mouth. But Dizon, Nicolas Ignacio, I know he had orasyon, and I believe he also had an anting-anting also. But he only it's only as needed, it was what he would
use. And did they also relate these methods to your father as well, so your father could incorporate that into his methodology, into his ways?
Yeah. As of you mean more like the spiritual side of Arnis?
Correct. Yes.
I don't know if he really got into that with Dizon, but it's more Nicolas Ignacio is what I heard from him that he told me, where he learned a lot of his knowledge regarding that aspect from him.
So your father was able to use the anting-anting as well?
I don't know if he had an anting-anting or not. If he did, he didn't tell me. Yeah.
Something he didn't share with you, at least not.
Yeah. But he told me that Nicolas Ignacio had a book of orasyon that he had, and then in the Philippines, what they do is if they want to test see if it's a real orasyon, they fire a pistol at it, and then Nicolas Ignacio had fired a pistol at his orasyon, and the bullet either dodged or went around it, or it didn't get hit. So that's how you determine if it's a real one or not.
Sure. And hopefully you're not. Hopefully you don't have it on you at the time when they're firing.
Yeah.
That would be a rather devastating test. Did your father ever speak of any particular confrontations that he had that stood out to you? That he had? That's correct. Yes, that your father had. That he may have actually fought and actually survived.
I think one time at his work, some guy was always approaching him saying that you're only one bullet. You're only one bullet. And this guy always had a gun on him. And one day my dad, I think he was having a bad day, and then he said, "Oh, you're nothing but one bullet." And so my dad was angry, and he had a small knife on him. So he said, "Okay." He said, "Draw your gun." Okay. I was like, "Pull it." And so he went to pull his gun. My dad trapped the hand, right?
Sure.
And then he pulled out his knife, but then the scabbard was still attached. So what he did, he bit it. He bit the scabbard and pulled the knife out and pointed the knife at the guy's chest.
Yes.
The guy yelled, "Fred!" And his face was just pale white, He was, it was so funny when you were telling me that. It was one encounter. Yeah. And I think there was another one when he was training with his dad, one of his cousins. Let me see if you know something. And I think he had tried to hit him with a steel bar. And he came to strike at him, and what he did is he hit it from the weapon was hit his hand from behind, right?
Sure.
And the stick flew, and the guy's hand was bruised, and the guy couldn't hold a spoon to eat for a week. That's what my dad told me. So.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, the old way, like my dad said, you know, when he was training with his dad, he was already when he started to get more proficient, he said, you know, he started to get you know, oh, you can't hit me now. And then my granddad says, oh yeah, and then bam, and then hit him in the lip, and busted his lip. You know. So my dad said that a lot of the people don't want to study under my granddad because they get hit. You know, they're really, like if you don't move your hand, they hit you. You know, it's the old way they used to do it. So no one really wanted to learn under him.
So no one really wanted to learn underneath your grandfather or underneath your father because they were going to get hit. They knew they were going to get hit.
No, not my father, my grandfather. You know, because he's more the old school.
I see.
Style.
I see.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
In the near future, or perhaps maybe within the next 5 to 10 years, where do you feel that you're going to be able to take your particular system, and what contributions do you think that you're going to possibly make new contributions, in other words, to the particular system in order to progress it nationwide as well as worldwide?
I hope to do it full time. I hope it to be what I focus on. Just it being my profession, just focusing on just teaching instead of it being like a part-time thing, and definitely to produce more instructors. That's one thing my dad was really disappointed with, because he had trained you know, a group of students, and he had spent like 7 years teaching them, and none of them taught, and one taught for like 2 years, and then quit. So he was, you know, really, you know, he's really disappointed that no one really stepped up and promoted his art. You know, he had. So I hope to produce more instructors. You know, because that's what he wanted, and you know, and have the art spread. You know, because you know, any good art or system should be shared with everybody. You shouldn't just keep it for yourself. You know, it's really, you know, I believe that's selfish. It should be shared with others. You know, it's bigger than us, the art, you know. So that's really what I want to do. You know, seminars, and produce more instructors so they can help promote my dad's art and his teachings.
For those that are interested, and if they would like to learn more about your particular system, your father's system, your father as well as you, how would they do that? Do you have a website and contact that they can contact you?
It's lakb.net. That's our main website, and they can email the site if they would like to set up a seminar, or if they wanted more information, they can contact me via there. And also, there's a Facebook page attached to the front of the website. They could contact me that way too. If they wanted more information about the style, or were interested in doing seminars, they could contact me that way.
Okay, so basically at lakb.net, that's your particular website to promote your system, and as you said, you also have a Facebook page that's associated with the website as well, correct?
Yeah.
And then on that on your website, of course, you have contact information where they can contact you and get in by phone or by email. Yes.
All that's there. Email, and then phone number. They can reach me there if they want.
All right, fantastic. Well, Master Lazo, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. I've been very interested on a personal level, actually, in speaking to you, and unfortunately, I did not get to speak to your father. I think that would have been an interesting conversation as well, simply because of the De Quertus and Felicimo de Zone connection with, of course, Grandmaster Lazo and Great Grandmaster Angel Caballas as well. And how much influence there was with both of them from DeZone.
Did you have any questions regarding these sources about these zones?
Actually, in regards to the methodology that was taught, you had said that he was more of a healer. Is that correct?
He was known as a healer, and he traveled around. Like I said, he had tried to heal my dad's aunt, but it was cataracts, as my dad said, so he was unable to to treat that. But
did your father tell you a great deal of stories about Dizon?
Yeah, Dizon. A couple that I can remember is Dizon sometimes would like when my dad would come there, he would kind of put his stick kind of like in a position where it doesn't look like there's no possible way you can block it,
Mm-hmm.
And then Dizon would say strike, and then he'll be able to meet your strike with a defense, encounter. So he sometimes he would do that, and sometimes one thing I remember my dad said that Dizon was he would have idols. He would like pose with his stick, and he would say Santiago Toledo, he would pose it or say Roman V Santa, like he had idols, and then he would do like a kind of pose with his stick,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe those were his idols, as far as the Eskrima Arnis.
I see.
And my dad had more of a relationship with Felicissimo Dizon's son, Boy Dizon. They became training partners and really close friends. And one time he told me, because when Grandmaster Ernesto Process and my father, they heard of, like I said, a good Escrimador in Novaliches.
Mm-hmm.
So they went there, and then that's where they met. They met Dizon, Felicissimo Dizon, and Boy Dizon would come to Grandmaster Press's school, and at the end of the training, Boy Dizon would say, he would ask my father, "Oh, come here," he said, "Let's practice," So they would practice like Sombrada, Sparidaga. They would train together, and him and Boy Dizon were pretty good friends back in the Philippines. Do you have any other questions? Hello?
Oh?
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. Had your father ever mentioned any stories that Dizon may have told him about training with the monk, the lone monk on the island in the cave?
He had mentioned it. Yeah, the tunnel of death.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He had told me that there's all kind of contraptions, gadgets there that would fling and hit you, And I know he told me that Dizon was one of the only ones to, get, pass through the tunnel without getting hurt.
Sure.
But as more into detail, he really didn't tell me too much about it.
So did he feel that those were primarily stories, or did he think did he believe that they really happened?
He believed it really happened. And another thing, like one thing when my dad when he met Dizon when he was older, he was, I think, more like he was already kind of sickly, and he would just be laying in bed,
Sure.
And then when my dad would come, Dizon, his wife, would say, Fred's here,
Uh-huh.
And then Dizon would just spring up and walk like he wasn't sick at all, When it came to Arnis, it seemed like he wasn't ill or anything like that, It was like he was a different person, and he'd be able to practice despite the fact of being ill,
Of course.
with no problem. I believe my dad had said that he had suffered from a stroke.
Uh-huh.
Heart failure.
I see.
Heart failure. Yeah. But he said Dizon was really husky, like built like a tank,
Uh-huh.
You know, his build, big. You know, that's how he described him to me. I wish he had a picture. You know, but he didn't have one of him.
Did your father share a lot of pictures with you from the old days when he was training?
Just there's some old pictures there of with Grandmaster Process, because he had helped register you know, the modern Arnis for Remy Process. So he has some old pictures with Grandmaster Process back in the 60s. I have that posted on my Facebook, one picture, and there's also a picture with Professor Remy and Grandmaster Process doing flow sparring also.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then just some. That's pretty much it, and then some other, you know, growing up in the Philippines, childhood pictures that he would show me.
Sure.
Yeah.
So are you looking forward to traveling back to Kansas again for to work with your study group there?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, they're really excited that I'm coming out there, and you know, they're a really nice group. We've been there so many times. It you know, it feels like you know, you're back at home when you're there. You know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have any other brothers? Then I take it you do. Do you have any sisters?
I have 3 sisters, but Christine, the youngest, is the only one really that takes some that is interested in learning Arnis. Other than that, two really don't have too much interest.
They're more interested in girl things as opposed to the Arnis.
Yeah, you know. It was hard because, like, I really had no one I'd ask them to train, but
Sure.
they didn't want to, you know. I had to find friends to train with, you know, go to their house, like, you know, because none of them really want to practice, you know.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it can be quite hard to disarm yourself, or to or to work the empty hands with yourself. Absolutely, that can be quite difficult. So, when you were training with your dad, who else was training with you? Was your dad? Did he have other students that were very competitive and perhaps at your level?
Well, when we first started out, he just wanted him and I, you know, like he didn't want anybody else. I had a really close friend that lived in the neighborhood, and then I just had him come over once, and then after that, he just wanted it just him and I for a while when I was first starting out. And then probably maybe 2 or 3 years later, he was teaching at a recreation center where he had a group of students.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's where I got exposed to the other students. But for a long time, it was just me and him, and he didn't want anybody else training with us.
So he wanted to teach you first and teach you alone. That's very good. That's very unique training you had.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it was like back in the backyard, you know, training. Sometimes at night, you can't see where the stick's coming, you know. Yeah, but it was good training, you know. Those are really good times for me.
Absolutely, I'm sure it was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Master Lazo, I wish you much success with further development. I'd like to stay in touch with you in the future, and keep up with your developing your system and so forth. And it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I hope we have the opportunity to talk again, maybe on a less formal basis.
Okay. Yes, definitely. I enjoyed, you know, sharing some of my, you know, experiences, and appreciate you calling and interviewing me.
Not a problem. I look forward to seeing, perhaps sometime in the future, you may develop some video clips and so forth, and maybe some curriculum DVDs that you may want to release, particularly once you get out on the seminar circuit again.
Yeah, definitely. That way the material can, you know, stick with the student. Definitely.
Absolutely.
I look into developing that also. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it's been a wonderful conversation. You have yourself a wonderful day, and thank you so much for your time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Ricky?
Yes.
Yeah, you're still with